Hi there, my name is Camilla, and I want to tell you a little bit of a mystical and shocking story about my sister. Her name is Mia. She is 5 years old, and she is a ghost. In fact, Mia has always been an extraordinary child. Even from the moment she was born, there was something meaningful and clever in her eyes, as if she had already lived more than one life and had something very important to tell us. After some time, she began babbling, which was quite frightening because it was always addressed to the same corner of the room. At that, she moved her eyes as she was really looking at some kind of invisible spirit. When Mia got a little older, she began to talk to Stacy and often told us what Stacy was doing at the moment. It was really creepy and didn't sound like a child's fantasy, besides me reducing to hysterics every day. Talking about her past lives, when she was another girl who was shot during the war. She remembered the names of her parents and her friends as well as the other events in detail. As time went on, things only got worse. She began to predict the deaths of our relatives and natural disasters around the world. She also could warn when someone from the family was going to get sick. Sometimes it just pissed me off, and I asked her to just shut up. Don't get me wrong. It's just that things like that put too much pressure on the psyche and brains, and life in permanent tension is very difficult. Once, something really weird happened that scared me almost to death. My parents and I left for some kind of play for children. When I returned home, I was 1,000% certain that I was alone in our house. I poured myself a hot chocolate and sat down to watch the news feed and TikTok. Then a silhouette floated past me. But I didn't pay attention to it at first because that night I slept very badly. Then I was very tired at school. So I decided that I was just imagining the whole thing. Well, sometimes people can see all sorts of glare and flashes due to fatigue. These can be silhouettes, raised spots, and anything else that your mind draws up. I didn't really think that things like that should be given any importance at all. But a couple of minutes later, the silhouette appeared again. This time I took my eyes off my phone and looked up immediately. It was not a silhouette at all, but my sister, Mia, herself. I was shocked and asked her what she was doing here, but she did not answer and went back to the balcony without saying a word. That didn't make any sense. How could my parents leave their 4-year-old child at home alone? They would never do anything like that, except in an emergency. And so I decided to call them and find out what had happened. My mom answered the call immediately. She asked what the problem was and why I was calling, unless it was absolutely necessary. They were watching the play at the moment, and talking on the phone in the theater was bad manners. I was in a mess and asked her why they went to the kiddie show without their child. Have they gone mad or maybe decided to revert to childlike state? Mom got very angry with me and asked what the hell I was talking about. She told me that she went to the play for Mia and took me with them. How do you think I felt at that very moment? I was terribly frightened. I was just shaking and quaking in fear. This is not a joke. Mia remained near my parents all this time. Then, whom did I just see on the balcony? I went to the balcony immediately, and my sister was still there. She turned around, short to me, and suddenly disappeared. At that moment, I could no longer stay at home alone. I ran out into the street to wait for my parents there. I couldn't even make myself go back in and change clothes. Of course, no one from the family believed me. They thought I was out of my mind. As for me, I had grown terrified of being alone in the house, and since then treated Mia with even greater apprehension. But less than a month later, another mystical incident happened. This time, my mother was in my place. It happened when she and Mia were at home together, but Mia was asleep, and Mom went to the shower, and at some point, Mia appeared next to Mom. At that, she somehow managed to break through the locked door. Mom was stunned and asked my sister how she got in there, but Mia smiled mysteriously and disappeared. My mom jumped out of the bathroom in horror and ran into Mia's room. My sister slept there as if nothing had happened. After that incident, my mother even began to scold me and blame me for seeing the hallucination. According to her opinion, I used to tell mystical nonsense about my sister constantly, and was scared of Mia, so my fear was the reason why my mother subconsciously drew the image of Mia there in the bathroom. But Mom's conclusion did not change the situation. Mia began to appear in different places of the house in the form of a ghost periodically. And then my parents had to give up and admit that it wasn't my fault, that something terrible was happening in our family. Sometimes my sister's ghost appeared so often that it was impossible to understand whether it was real media or not. And the indicator for us was that my sister could talk, but her phantom couldn't. Do you doubt if it's Mia or not? Just ask her something in general, because of visits from that ghost, my parents made a huge mistake. More specifically, they avoided the topic when talking to Mia. They said that she was a child and they just did not want to frighten her with stupid questions. According to their opinion, the ghost was the problem of those who saw it. Since Mia did not see it, it wasn't her problem. Well, she had other problems though, because she never stopped saying strange things. But the vow of silence was broken when my mother decided to have therapy to survive all this paranormal hell with minimum losses. She told the therapist about what was happening at our house and about Mia from the very beginning, and who would have known that on that day she would find the answer. The therapist explained that psychics with great energy and limitless abilities can intentionally or unintentionally create their phantoms and even direct them to a certain point on the planet. And since Mia could be one of the people with such abilities, she might have known what she was doing. Mom was impressed by what she had heard, and the same evening, she decided to talk to my sister. She asked Mia if she knew that sometimes another Mia could come and scare us. In response, she heard that, of course, Mia knew this, because she asked her counterpart to come to us herself. Why? She replied that it was just fun. Well, nice joke, wouldn't you say? The whole family almost lost our minds and nerves trying to get along with this ghost all the time. Mia knew perfectly well what was happening and was even the reason for this horror. On the same day, they asked me not to do this again and to not frighten us in any way. And you know what? It really worked. The ghost stopped appearing and frightening us, and our nerves began to recover gradually. But Mia was growing up, and at some point she realized that she had a weapon that no one else had. Moreover, this weapon was invisible and invincible, so she decided to use it for her purposes. To put it short, Mia became insolent. Sometimes she demanded absolutely impossible things from me, like buying her a talking parrot right away, changing the weather from cold to warm, and stuff like that. Of course, I could not do this, and in order to teach me a lesson, Mia began to call her counterpart again. This terrible ghost made my blood run cold. It became a frequent guest of our house again, and I began to go crazy. My parents felt the same. This continues to this day, and no persuasion helps. It seems that my sister has found leverage over us and uses it happily. Of course, due to her age, she doesn't understand what she does to us. And I really hope that she will grow up soon enough and stop scaring us with her phantom.